Hello, Rob from Fountain Pen Journey with what I consider to be a really important video. What are the best fountain pens for beginners? I'm going to be showing lots of pens in this, not just your typical ones that you often see recommended online. So there's going to be an awful lot of fountain pens in this video, so it's going to be quite a long one, so do bear in mind when you're watching this. There's a lot to take in, and I'm going to talk about the merits, disadvantages of each one. Now, this is obviously aimed at beginners, newcomers to using fountain pens, and there's a whole load of different aspects to this. I'm going to start off I'm going to go through brand by brand. I'm going to start off talking about the, if you like, the basic fountain pens for beginners from each of those brands. One criteria that I had in this video is that no pen should cost more than £20 or $20 US dollars, because I think that is an important price point for pretty much 99% of people. Some people might buy, I'll just cast this out there, they might buy a platinum Preppy, absolutely love it, and then save up a few $100s and buy a Mont Blanc 149. This isn't what I'm aiming towards. This is where do you begin if you want to know which fountain pen to buy and use as a beginner. What's reliable, what's affordable, what's got options. I'm going to go through the pens. So here we go. I'm going to start off with, it's going to put some people off because I know that there isn't always a lot of love for this brand with their nibs, but it's still very important. So let's talk about Lamy. So Lamy fountain pens for beginners. We have the Safari, all plastic, ABS, very tough plastic fountain pens, really robust fountain pens. They come in a whole range of colours. I mean, this is the 2020 special edition Mango. Here is the yellow version, there is a yellow version, there's all sorts of colours. I mean, it's available as a fountain pen and a ballpoint and all sorts of stuff. I mean, yeah, lots and lots of options with the Lamy Safari. Plastic, interesting design, 80s, very early 80s design, which has stood the test of time. And what makes it a good fountain pen for beginners? Well, first off, it's tough. ABS plastic, it's the plastic they make Lego bricks from. It's pretty much indestructible when you compare it to your standard plastics which people use for fountain pens or other types of pens, like think about cheap ballpoints. So the Lamy Safari is a really robust, easy to use fountain pen. Shall uncap that. But the one thing that puts people off is this triangular grip section. We call it a grip section for beginners. It's called a section, and there are indentations on the top but none underneath. This is rounded underneath, and what it does, it forces your fingers into this tripod grip, which some people find comfortable, myself included, and other people really dislike. The section's a decent length, so you know you've got no discomfort where you hold this, as long as you don't mind holding this pen in a tripod grip. So that is one of the polarizing factors with the Lamy Safari. I'm going to talk about the issues with Lamy shortly. If you don't want the plastic version of this pen, there is the Lamy All-Star, which once again comes in other colours. Now this is an aluminium, so it's a metal fountain pen. Doesn't actually weigh a great deal different to the Lamy Safari, but some people prefer a metal pen. They prefer the feel of metal, look of it, things like that. The colours are slightly different, obviously, but other than that, identical, apart from the translucent, smoky sort of feed. It's still got this triangular type section, these indentations on top where you hold the pen. But it's a good option if somebody wants a metal fountain pen. I'm going to move the camera slightly, so bear with me a minute, because there is tons and tons of stuff to talk about. I shall just grab my Lamy Vista, which is the clear colourless version. So this is the demonstrator version of the Lamy Safari. So we've got two Lamy Safaris, yellow, mango, Lamy All-Star in Pacific green maybe, I can't remember the colours, whole load of different colours available, and the Lamy Vista demonstrator. So if those don't particularly suit you, there is the Lamy Nex. Now the Lamy Nex comes in this sort of grey. It's an aluminium fountain pen. It's cheaper than the Lamy Safari, and this aluminium barrel is triangular but rounded towards the base. It's quite a interesting pen. This is the opal colour version with the cap, and I'm sure I've got, there we go, the Lamy Nex Anthracite. Now this is this dark grey coloured, which I think is rather quite nice. And the Lamy Nex, pop off the cap, there is still this triangular section going on, but it's not quite as pronounced. It is, however, also underneath, but it's rubberized. It's very, very grippy, so if you've got slippery fingers, and the section's a decent length, there's no step up there, nothing to irritate or annoy, this is really comfortable to hold. Really, really nice pen to write with. And all of these Lamy pens have steel nibs. This typically sold with medium steel nibs. If you buy them in a blister pack such as this is a Lamy All-Star, the purple, this is what you generally find. You may or may not get a pouch, but you get a blue Lamy proprietary cartridge, the pen, and as you can see, medium nib. So that's what you typically get when you buy a Lamy fountain pen from a retailer. These pens, as I said, all cost under $20, often available a lot more cheaply, and they're really, really interesting, good fountain pens. There is also the Lamy ABC, which is this pen here, which I've lost. I've completely lost it. Where's it gone? But it's not what I'd recommend. If the Lamy ABC is actually aimed at children, and it's a wood fountain pen with plastic ends, it's not really one you're going to go for, but that is another potential option. So there's Lamy. Now, Lamy fountain pens, and this is where it's important to talk about the actual nib options. All of Lamy's nibs are tested in-house in Germany in their factory, but they do sometimes have the odd one that skips through the quality control process. They might write okay, but they tend to be a little bit scratchy, perhaps a bit misaligned, the tines of the nib. I'll try and get this here. So these two tines here, one might be higher than the other one, and that leads to scratchiness and a poor writing experience. I have experienced maybe 20% of all the Lamy fountain pens that I've bought have issues like that, and if you know what you're doing, it's a really easy fix. You get your brass shim out, you readjust the tines using a loop. You might even need to use a bit of micro mesh to smooth the tip, but it's maybe not something which, as a beginner, you're going to be 100% keen on doing, because you may wreck the nib. I mean, the nibs are swappable. They do slide on and off the sections very easily. But that's Lamy. Typical sort of classic design which people are going to recommend. I'm not a huge advocate of recommending Lamy, simply because of the issues that I have experienced with their nibs, because of this scratchiness and misalignment, things like that. And there's nothing worse than being a beginner and having a scratchy fountain pen. It's just going to really annoy you. It's going to leave a bad taste in your mouth, and you're not going to be happy with using that fountain pen unless you know how to fix it. So, what would I recommend moving forwards? Well, I have a whole range of Caveco Sports. Now, you can pay an awful lot more money for the AL All Sport metal fountain pens, such as this rose gold version. So these are metal, much heavier, but there are stacks and stacks of coloured plastic sport options. Here we have, I'll move this out of the way because it's a bit of a eyesore. We've got the Caveco Classic Skyline Sport. So this is a pocket pen, and these pens are really quite short. You can write with them unposted, but posted they become full size. So you've got a really nicely sized fountain pen, but it's still a pocket pen because the whole thing just slides together and it becomes tiny. If I put this next to the Lamy Safari, you can see there is quite a distinct difference in size. However, when you post the Caveco, same size as the Lamy Safari, unposted. So, you know, it's a good workhorse fountain pen. And the reason I'm saying, you know, Caveco, these sport fountain pens, because they are inexpensive. They're below the $20, available in a range of colours. This is the 2020 special edition coral coloured fountain pen. I have a green one. These the Skyline Sports are the solid coloured ones. There are also the Ice Sports, which are coloured. So you've got this clear, colourless, transparent barrel. We've got a matching section with the cap. So this is a red one. So that's what they look like. What else have we got in here? Trying to pick through my little collection here. We have got the Caveco Frosted Sport. This is a opaque, translucent colour scheme. This is the coconut one. We've got a nice pink Caveco Sport there. We've got the Caveco Sport Frosted Sport Blush Pitaya. Compare those side by side. So you've got the Skyline Sport, Frosted Sport, Ice Sport all together. We've got a nice orange Ice Sport here. And why am I recommending Caveco Sports? Because they're affordable, they're really comfortable to write with. There's none of this rounded, none of this triangular section. We've got a cylindrical rounded section here, really comfortable, nice pens to use. Huge range of nib sizes, extra fine, fine, medium, double broad, etc. And I've had probably, I'd say, I'm going to estimate here, 98% of all the Caveco Sports I have a few, 98% of all the sports I've had are really excellent writers straight out of the box. I don't recall having to tune any nibs of the Caveco Sports. They're really good fountain pens, and I shall use the red one as the demonstration for the next bit of this chat. Right, colourless transparent demonstrator, the Ice Sport rather. Another great thing about Caveco is that these take standard international ink cartridges. Lamy take proprietary ink cartridges, these will take standard international. So you've already got an easy route into other pens. They won't hold a standard international converter. You can get converters for these, but they're tiny and they hold hardly any ink. But these Caveco Sport pens, all of them, all Caveco pens, like this, take standard international cartridges, which is brilliant because it saves on all the messing around buying proprietary cartridges. The other good thing about the Kaweco Sport pens, the plastic ones, such as this Ice Sport, the Frosted Sport, the Skyline Sport, if you unscrew the barrel, rub some silicone grease on the threads of the section, don't put too much on, but just dab a little bit on, rub it in so that it provides a seal. Use an ink syringe and then you can fill this whole barrel with ink, and that holds an awful lot of ink, and these pens are then eyedroppered. You screw them together, the silicone grease provides a seal here in the section between the barrel and the section, and you've got this massive ink reservoir, so you don't even need the cartridges. You can literally fill the barrel as an eyedropper and use the pen itself that way. And I have never had any problems with Caveco Sports burping ink when they've been eyedroppered, which is pretty much unheard of. Most eyedropper fountain pens burp ink, especially when the ink level starts to get low. The heat from your hand makes the air expand inside the barrel and it forces ink through the feed and out onto the page. I haven't experienced that with the Caveco Sports, which is yet another plus for these little fountain pens. We could also think about the Caveco Perkeo, which is a larger fountain pen, a little bit similar to the Lamy Nex, available in a wide range of rather sometimes icky looking contrasting colours, but it's one of those things that some people may prefer. It's a slightly bigger pen, and it's another option. So moving on from Caveco, what shall we talk about next? Now I've got to try and shuffle around my pens here. Here we go. Parker. Now Parker fountain pens, Parker Vector, Parker Jotter, been around for absolute donkey's years. And what do I think of them? Well, first off, they have proprietary Parker cartridges, so you've got that problem, same as the Lamy pens. Is it a problem if you're buying into this? Not really. I don't think it is. The Parker cartridges, and the Lamy cartridges to be honest, are cheap enough. And at the end of the day, if you only have one or a pack of cartridges, you use them up, don't throw them away, rinse them out, and then you can use an ink syringe to fill whatever ink you would like into those ink cartridges. So it's not a closed system entirely, but they are proprietary cartridges. So this is the Parker Vector, comes in a whole range of colours. There's even a metal version, stainless steel version, pop cap, black section, quite a slim pen, not overly long, a little bit on the short side, posts really quite deeply and nicely, and it's really comfortable to write with once posted. These are excellent, typically sold with medium nibs, and they really do write exceptionally well. I've never had a bad Parker nib. They're just really reliable writers. Uninteresting nibs, but still really good. So that's the Parker Jotter, and this is the iconic classic design. I would say equally, if not more so, of an iconic design than the Lamy Safari. And this is the Parker Vector with this arrow clip, which to be honest does tend to snag on things if it's a bit loose, if you've got loose threads on pockets or, you know, knitted cardigan, things like that. This will snag a bit. It's not sharp, but it's prone to snagging on things. Pop cap again, metal section, which can be slippery for some people. It's quite a thin, if you like, a small diameter section, and there is a bit of a step up there, but it's a good sized pen, designed to be written with posted, and the cap sits on there, and it becomes quite long, but it's still not heavy because this is lightweight plastic. It's not the most robust plastic. I don't know whether it's ABS, but I have had one or two of these crack. I've got, for example, a vintage white one here which develops a crack there, you can see. So I mean, they're not indestructible. I mean, no pen is, but it's just something. But Parker Vector fountain pen, Parker Jotter, available in a whole range of different colours. Here's an orange Parker Jotter. Really, really nice pens to write with. I like them. I think they're understated, quite often overlooked fountain pens. People always tend to lean towards the Lamy Safari and the Caveco Sports as the ultimate beginner's fountain pens. But to be honest, these are really worth considering and should really be up there with those first two that I've mentioned. So that's the Parkers that I would recommend for beginners. And let's pop this out of the way. We can't discuss beginners fountain pens without a bit of a nod to my fountain pen journey channel, where I started off as a beginner, complete total novice in fountain pens, and I only knew about and bought the Jinhao Chinese fountain pens. And what are they? Well, they are these things. We have a whole range of Jinhao fountain pens. Let me pop them all here for you to have a look at. So here we have a selection of cheap, very cheap, that's not a Ginha, very cheap Jinhao fountain pens. And the one that I would always recommend people go to if they're thinking about buying a cheap fountain pen are these, the Jinhao X450s. There it is on the cap. Metal fountain pen, incredibly cheap. Few dollars, couple of dollars. You can pay an awful lot more if you go onto places like Amazon, and you're not aware of the fact that these are Jinhao fountain pens, and you can buy them from eBay so cheaply. But they're great. They're not perfect, and I'll talk about that shortly, but they are really, really lovely looking fountain pens. Classic cigar shape, metal fountain pens, so they're really substantial feeling. They're pretty tough. Pop cap, plastic section. There are indentations, so once again you do have that bit of a triangular section going on, so you've got the tripod grip. It's quite a short section. Step up isn't really sharp at all, so you could hold it further up if you desired. Nice looking nibs, typically sold with medium Jinhao nibs. These are standard international cartridge converter fountain pens, so they often come for the price, especially, you know, they come with a converter, which is brilliant, and they will take standard international cartridges too, so that's another plus for these. So that is the Jinhao X450. I have here a red version of the X450, metallic red. This is the marbled blue Jinhao X450. There are also other fountain pens which are similar to this from Jinhao, such as the 750, 650, things like that, but they're all very much the same. I prefer the overall look and feel and size of the Jinhao X450 over the 750 and 650. You get aluminium sections which are rounded on the X750 and such, but I don't actually like them as much as this fountain pen. I prefer the Jinhao X450. Word of warning, these Jinhao fountain pens, if you leave them unused for maybe a week, you will find that the ink in the nib dries out and it becomes difficult to write with. That's known as hard starting. So what will happen is you uncap the pen and you put the nib onto the paper and nothing happens, and you end up having to prime the feed, which you do by basically unscrewing the barrel, and say for example you've got some ink in here, you would then turn this filling knob a bit to force ink into the section and the feed, and then you will be able to write with the pen, which is it's not a massive issue, but it is something that I've learned to appreciate as I've moved on in my own fountain pen journey, because I started only using Jinhao fountain pens, cheap Chinese fountain pens, when I began my fountain pen journey, and I thought that was how they wrote. When you use a Lamy All-Star, Safari, whichever, or a Caveco Sport, you don't tend to get that drying out problem with the hard starting, and you think, actually, have I been sort of a little bit, you know, I don't know what the best word is, I'm basically cheap Chinese fountain pens, blessing and a curse. That's what I'm really trying to say. They're not the best fountain pens, but they're certainly available really cheaply. Good option if you like different colours, different styles. I mean, these are all Jinhao fountain pens. We have another incredibly cheap Jinhao here, the Jinhao 159 rather, which is a copy of the Mont Blanc 149. All metal, very heavy fountain pen, big chunky fountain pen, really big chunky thing. And these are excellent. I mean, these are like $1.50 you can buy them at. Really good, come in a range of colours, really good colours. Nice fountain pens to write with, but you know, you do potentially also have the hard starting issues sometimes with these, more so with the Jinhao X450s and the like, but the Jinhao 159, this pen, really good, really reliable. I've got these other three Jinhaos here. Now these are Parker Duofold Centennial copies. This is the Jinhao Duofold Centennial, so they unashamedly even copied the name. So they've copied the style and everything else, and these are, if you like, a little bit more expensive than the X450s, but they are pretty good quality, and these were released in, I'm trying to think, about December 2019, and these are really good, really classy looking fountain pens, very affordable, good starter fountain pen, sort of post, not very well, it's too long, but a decent size. So nice colours. These have also in 2020 become available in a whole range of other colours. These were the three original colour schemes which were sold. The Jinhao Duofold Centennial was sold as, but you know, if they don't suit you, maybe the next one, next brand that I'm talking about will. So there's the Jinhao Duofold Centennial. Interesting Parker Duofold copy, very affordable, decent pens. If you didn't want to spend that much on a fountain pen, then the Jinhao 51As are exceptional. These are, quite honestly, some of the best fountain pens, and especially for the price, because I think I've spent 99 cents on one of these, including shipping from China a few years ago, and they're brilliant. Whole range of colours. This is the translucent red version. They come with a cartridge, they come with a converter rather. The nibs are fine, hooded nibs, so you've got this hooded nib option rather than the standard fountain pen nibs that you do see. There is also a version of the Jinhao 51A which comes with a standard fountain pen nib, though I've not bought one of those, don't really fancy trying it. And I've had one of these in my everyday carry at work for years, pretty much, in fact, since I first bought these. You can get different coloured barrels for these, that are available with different acrylics, even wood. You can get different materials. The section matches the barrel, which is great. They're really comfortable to write with, exceptional writers. They don't hard start, lots of love. They come with a converter, take standard international cartridges or this converter, and you can even eyedropper these fountain pens. So you put your silicone grease on the threads of the section, fill the barrel with ink, screw it together, and you've got a huge ink capacity, and especially with the fine nib, this pen will write for months. Really excellent fountain pen. I can't move on from Jinhao without just first talking about the Jinhao Shark, which is very, very similar to the Jinhao 51A, except not a metal cap. You get a plastic shark-shaped cap. Available in different colours, make a great kiddies pen, great fun fountain pen. I personally don't have one. I've kind of held back, you know. I've got my reservations on shark-shaped fountain pens. So that's Jinhao. Now, the next brand I'm going to talk about is this, Moonman. If you're looking at cheap Chinese fountain pens, you're going to come across Moonman. Now, this is the Jinhao. This is the Moonman M2. It's an eyedropper only fountain pen. Colourless, clear, translucent barrel, and section and cap and everything. Really well made. Usually sold with a fine nib. Sometimes you can get a Fude nib, which if you're a beginner, then I'm not recommending using a Fude nib. Requires you to hold the pen at different angles to get different line widths, but really fun once you know what you're doing. I love them. So these Moonman fine nibs, I'm not a fan of. I find them generally a bit scratchy, and well, not scratchy, I'm just going to say that they are fine and dry. So if you like a wet nib and a really nice smooth writing experience, these nibs are fine and dry, and it feels like the nib's dragging, and I feel like it's not wet enough at all on the paper. So I tend to mess around with brash shim to open up the tines, do that sort of thing on these Moonman nibs, because in my view they are pretty awful. But Moonman M2 is an excellent, affordable, possible fountain pen for some beginners. If you like fine nibs, then definitely one to consider. Now, we talked about the Jinhao Duo Fold Centennials, these pens. Moonman also have their own version, which is the Moonman M600S, which is available in several different colour finishes. I have here this sort of, I think this is lake green, this version here, which in 2020 the Jinhao Duo Fold Centennial also released the same acrylic material, so it's kind of one of those things. These Moonman pens cost a fair bit more than the Jinhao Duo Fold Centennials, the Moonman M600Ss, but the colours are nicer, the materials are nicer. I mean, look at this teal colour here. I mean, it's sparkly, it's chatoyant, it's shimmery. It's a nice looking fountain pen. These also do dry out if you leave them unused for any length of time, and they come with Moonman nibs, which I generally dislike. You can swap the nibs out if that's something you want to do. Jinhao nibs are better than Moonman nibs in my own opinion, and as a beginner I'd always recommend that perhaps you go for a Jinhao over a Moonman. They're cheaper, but just had to add these M600S Moonman fountain pens into the discussion because they are similar to the Jinhao Duo Fold Centennials. Right, let's talk Platinum. Yes, Platinum do make cheap fountain pens, the most iconic of which is the Platinum Preppy. Dirt cheap, especially in America. It's not as easy to get hold of these in the UK. Certainly you don't get the nib options. You can often find them only with a fine nib or only with a medium nib. And it's cheap, it's plasticky. This sort of plastic is going to crack. It is going to shatter if you drop it, if you sit on it, things like that. So don't think of this being the ultimate cheap fountain pen, because it's not 100% durable. You can eyedropper these, but you know, they take these proprietary Platinum cartridges, which is kind of annoying. But once again, fill this with ink, silicone grease on the threads of the section, screw it together, you've got an eyedropper. So you can get away from the whole platinum proprietary cartridge that way. Clear section, nice comfortable pen to hold. Unfortunately this branding and stuff you can't get rid of. This isn't stuck on, it's printed on there, so it detracts from the look of the pen. It does post. It's a decent size, it's comfortable, and it's a good writer, but I'm not overly sold on the Platinum Preppy. It is an almost guaranteed 100% positive writing experience, and this is why so many people love them and recommend them as a beginner's fountain pen, but they are, you know, a little bit cheap, a little bit nasty. To avoid the cheap and nastiness, I would go for this, the Platinum Prefount, which is an all plastic fountain pen, still once again not solid 100% plastic, a little bit better quality. We've got this colourless section, and it takes once again proprietary platinum cartridges, but you can also eyedropper these, and these hold a mountain of ink, real ton of ink inside the barrel of these. Available with different nib options, all for the same price, quite easily available in the UK if that's where you're based. There are other platinum options, such as the Platinum Plaisir and things like that, but they tend to be a bit more expensive, not really in the same affordable price point. So Platinum. We could also talk about Pilot. I haven't got one, don't really see the need to buy one, but there is the Pilot V pen, which is a disposable fountain pen. So it's single use only, and I don't really see the point in that. I think that kind of gets away from the whole thing about fountain pens. Saw briefly these two, or one of these fountain pens. These are from Faber Castell. These are Faber Castell Fresh fountain pens. Came out in 2020. Did a review of them. I honestly think that these are perhaps even more, well, they are in fact more ugly than the Lamy Safari. Check out my review for the Faber Castell Fresh and see why. However, the writing experience with these pens is exceptional. These are really, really good writers, and they take standard international cartridges. You can't eyedropper them because, I'll try and show you with the green one, there we go. There's a massive hole. It's like the Lamy Vista, you know, and the Safari. There's a massive hole in either side with this ink window. So, you know, you can't eyedropper these fountain pens, otherwise there will be ink everywhere. But these are brilliant writers. So that's the Faber Castell Fresh. And if you want an even more upmarket fountain pen with a nicer design, then I'd seriously recommend the Faber Castell Grip fountain pen. It's a very, very popular, very good writing fountain pen. I haven't had a lot of experience with them, but they're really, really recommended. So, why hasn't TWSBI come into this discussion yet? Well, TWSBI is the last resort as far as fountain pens go, because as far as their under $20 fountain pens go, there is only the TWSBI Go, which is one of my favourite all-time fountain pens. Pop cap, available with all sorts of different nib sizes, so you've got your extra fine, fine, medium, broad, stub, and it's got this interesting syringe piston filling system. So you don't need ink cartridges in this, it literally has its own built-in filling system. And these are available in a range of colours. They're really, really great fountain pens. I find them brilliant for experimenting with different inks because they're so quick and easy to clean. And I'm just trying to find, here we go, 3 different colour options. There is the, what TWSBI call the clear version, so you've got this demonstrator where you can see the full inner workings of the spring and a colourless piston rod. There is the blue version and this sort of smoky grey translucent version. all available with different with nib sizes. Really exceptional writers, really good. I've never had any issues with those. TWSBI Ecos, unfortunately, in my review do not get a mention, and the reason being is that they cost over the $20. So sorry, but definitely one to think about, the TWSBI Eco. Piston filler fountain pen, really nice comfortable pens to hold. The TWSBI Eco T is very similar, except that has a triangular section. TWSBI Eco is round, cylindrical. So piston fillers, easy to maintain, you can dismantle the whole pen, you get the instructions and tools included, but maybe the next step up for most beginners. So there we have it, that is my full roundup of which fountain pens I recommend for beginners. So thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.